It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Older. The time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Monday, and as usual on a Monday, I like to try to start you off with something a little bit different.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
Okay, sorry, I just coughed right into the microphone there. Not a good way to start a Monday.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
For the first story, we're going to head up to Casper, Wyoming, a place that I drive by on occasion, and I've been wondering the hell they're going to do with this place. So there is a house, and it's an okay-looking house, kind of, sort of. I wouldn't buy it. And it sits in a really bad place. Now, Jim, I know you're up right now. This is the house that sits on McKinley, and what is that? Not 15th. Is that 14th? I'll take a look at, 13th. So, McKinley and 13th. You know the house that had the car drive through the front of it? All right, so the people who lived in that house had a car drive through it a while ago. And so to fix the problem, they had some really big rocks, big ones, placed in front of their house. Because 13th, there's a stoplight there. Okay? McKinley runs north-south. 13th runs east-west. 13th ends at McKinley, right? And the house is on the other side of that. So somebody, I don't know if they're drunk or what, doesn't make the turn onto McKinley. It keeps going straight, even though 13th has ended, and goes right through the house. So the owner of the house put some huge rocks in front of the house, unfortunately, leaving enough of a gap for a small car to fit through. And by God, somebody did it. So here's the story that's in front of me. Yeah, leaving a huge hole in the house. Firefighters extracted the driver of the vehicle who appeared to be suffering from a medical emergency. The driver was transported to Banner Health. Thank God that's right up the road. Cause of the crash under investigation by the police department. For the last hour, eastbound traffic on 13th has been closed from Jackson Street in South McKinley. Okay, fire, EMS, and so on. And that poor house, the city needs to put up a barrier. This is people who are responding on Facebook. Again, they really never fix it up from the last time someone drove through. Molly writes, that's the third time I can remember those poor people. Someone writes, I don't understand how that keeps happening. Mary writes, will they ever fix that house? Diane says, not again. Crystal, oh dang, what happened to it before? And other people asking, ever going to fix that? And I've wondered the same thing. I've driven by going, are they ever going to fix that house? Because they had put up some temporary plywood and stuff like that to fix this massive hole. Okay, well, so apparently they've decided maybe just to go ahead and remove the house. Yeah, this is just sad. Okay, so here's the latest. Here's Cowboy State Daily. The third major strike on a home at the intersection of 13th and McKinley Street in Casper may bring the house down. Casper's fire department and police department responded to a call about 11:11 p.m. Sunday to a T-shaped intersection, a wood-framed house on the 1300 block of McKinley to find a white SUV inside, all the way inside. Now, thankfully, this time the house is vacant. Firefighters extracted the driver, who appeared to be suffering from a medical emergency. Okay. Anderson reports that the firefighters constructed a temporary support for the structure so the building doesn't collapse anymore. Eastbound traffic on 13th was closed. The South McKinley was closed while crews tried to stabilize the structure. Let it fall down. Quote, "It's been hit several times," he said. A year and 4 months ago, it was hit, and no one has been living in the house or anything. The insurance company just settled with me about 6 months ago, says the owner of the home. We're going to have to remodel it. It's probably going to have to come down. Sunday driver just missed two big landscape rocks. See, here again, they put these there's a row of massive rocks in front of the house. When I say massive, I mean these are really big rocks. But there's just enough of a hole for a car to squeeze through. And this is the third time a car managed just to squeeze through just right and smack into that home. The vehicle has the home has a basement. They were surprised the floor held the weight of the vehicle. So I'm looking at a picture of the house again with the vehicle in it. Oh, dear Lord. I mean, that vehicle made it all the way into the house. Now, I'm looking at this thinking, this has got to be, by definition, the worst place to build a house in the worst possible places anyone could ever build a house. The stoplight doesn't seem to matter. People keep going straight. The rocks in front of it, the massive boulders, don't seem to make a damn bit of difference. Jim and Casper, transported a banner, we can kill you real fast, medical center. Okay. Rayanne and Fort Danger. Those people have had a car drive through their homes so many times, they need to build a freaking wall. Well, they did, actually, Rayanne, but here's the thing. They built a wall out of those big boulders, but they had to leave just enough. I mean, it is barely enough space for a car to drive between the boulders. And by God, if people don't manage to do it 3 times now. So the person who owns the home, again, talking with the insurance company, how do you think an insurance company would deal with insuring that house at this time? After the third car crashed through it, how do you think an insurance company would deal with it? This guy's probably not even insurable anymore as far as his house is concerned. And the idea of rebuilding it, were it me, I know the property owner doesn't want to lose money, and he could lose quite a bit of money there. But I'd like the idea of just take the house down and don't do anything with that lot anymore, obviously. And while we're at it, can we put another big boulder in there to fill the gap so another car doesn't go through into the empty lot and maybe down the hill and hit the house behind it or something like that? I don't know. But, okay, I have driven by now since the last time a car went through. Every time I'm down on McKinley, I'll take a look at that and wonder, like other people have, are they ever going to fix up this house or what? Here's Susie and Casper. Those boulders are in front of the house next door, not the one the car hit. No, actually, Susie, the answer is both. The boulders are in front of the house next door, but they're also in front of the house that the car hit. I've looked at that many times when I've driven by. I've looked over to see how they place the boulders. Yes, the boulders are in front of the house next door, but the boulders are also in front of the house that the car hit. Unfortunately, I don't know why, maybe they weren't thinking when they dropped the boulders down, I don't know. They left just enough space for a car to get through. And by God, a car manages to make it through 3 times so far.
Concerns for the president's health are growing after the Secret Service reportedly discovered Joe Biden attempting to dig what appears to be his own grave on the White House lawn. Agents reported that the 81-year-old Biden was panting from exertion from the effort of digging the hole, which was nearly 5 feet deep, and that his hands and fingernails were caked in dirt. The White House has since denied that Biden was digging his own grave and insisted he was merely digging a large hole.
The only show broadcasting from a bunker under Devil's Tower. Hey, it's cold down here. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, 6 a.m. weekdays on AM 1030 and FM 95.1.
6:23 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Monday. I was going to go on to something else, but you guys are drawing me back, and that's fine. If you're just joining me, Casper, Wyoming, there's an intersection. So the north-south intersection is called McKinley, and the east-west is 13th. And 13th will head in an easterly direction and end at McKinley. And if you're at the stoplight on 13th, waiting for it to change to get on to McKinley, you'll see directly across the street is a house. That house has had cars not just hit it, but run into the living room. This would be the third time. So, Jay in Casper says, well, yeah, you build a coffee house there and make a great drive-through, or drive-in, for that matter. And I'm thinking, not bad idea, because it already is. So, okay. Red in Casper. Over the weekend, I saw at least 2 additional houses where the fences have been hit by cars. Starting to wonder if it's a problem with drivers around Casper. I've seen other things as well. There's a couple of places where there's guardrails to prevent people from getting into the Platte River. And those guardrails have been nailed. And they're on a turn. It's a curve. Kind of like an S-turn on the road. And this is near the Mills area. And the guardrail has just been beaten, like by more than one hit. So what's going on there? Simple Man in Casper. So a few years back, in fact, let me go ahead and hang on a second while I open his whole message up here, because he's got a little bit of a history for us. So a few years back, somebody went through the intersection, that very intersection, into the house. Later on, they decided to put big boulders out there. The last one over a year ago actually hit one of the boulders and pushed it into the house. Really? And the vehicle went into the house this time. The rock, I don't think, was actually ever put backwards, needing to be so that it was easier for the SUV to go through it. This is where I think the line of boulders in front of that house, there's a hole just big enough for a car to get through, barely. And they managed to do it. He writes, personally, I think that they should destroy the house and get the X Game people and Red Bull competition team to come out and build a ramp so the next person that runs through it just flies straight up to see if they can do a couple of clips before they land, giving us some entertainment. Should somebody ever do it again? I really wonder, what do you do if you're the owner of that house? First, the insurance company is going to give you a hard time after this. Bad place to have a house. I always thought it was anyway. I know it was not originally that way. Originally, when the house was built, those intersections would have not been that busy. But still, McKinley is now a main drag through town. And 13th is too. And so the house is right there. And I'm looking at it going, I wouldn't want a house there just because of the traffic alone. It would just be a lot. But all right, there it is. And if you wanted someplace affordable for that reason, that would be affordable. Really affordable now, because who would want to be there, and even build a house there? But okay, let's say the insurance company settles, although I think the insurance company would never want to insure that place again unless a serious barrier were built. I mean, you think the boulders would have been enough. But, okay, let's really build a serious barrier. If I were the insurance company, that's what I would say. You build something really good there, we'll let you build another house. Other than that, it should just be an empty lot or something like that. Although, again, take the house down. Remember, it still has a cellar. So if you take the house down, somebody could fall into that hole. So the whole thing has to be filled up if you're going to do that. But you would still want a barrier because it goes downhill and there's a back alley dirt road behind it. So you're going to want to have some kind of barrier to prevent people going through the empty lot and down below, which if they don't wreck down there, they might just hit the next house in line. Who knows? But, okay, I want to know what is the problem then with that particular intersection, because now I don't know about the other two. This one, the guy who was arriving at that intersection, they're saying, appears to have had some kind of medical issue. And he just went right through the stoplight and kept going. The other guys, I don't know if they were impaired by alcohol or whatever. I'd have to go back and see the stories to see what their problem is. But that, I don't see this happening at other stoplights that I'm aware of. Anyway, which is why, for the most part, whenever I go to look for a home, someplace to live, I usually like to, well, I take that into consideration. I don't like living on a place that is vulnerable to getting hit or other things, you know, flooding, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot I take into consideration, and actually that's one of them. There's plenty of places I've seen over the years where nice house, whoa, what a horrible place to put that house. It's a really nice house. I just hate where they put it. All right, coming up on some local news we have to take care of after local news. Update on the weather forecast, and you and I roll back into it again. Next topic up, the concealed carry bill, well, gun-free zones in Wyoming. That bill sits on the governor's desk. We'll see what he does with it.
'Older. And we're back. Sorry, we were busy tricking pescatarians into eating Rocky Mountain oysters. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Monday. Yeah, DJ's correct. DJ's up in Gillette, so the only person she knows that says, thank God it's Monday. Yes, because I actually like showing up to work. So, okay. We just got to wait to see what the governor does with it. A bill sitting on the governor's desk that would end many other gun-free zones in the state of Wyoming. Ladies and gentlemen, your favorite song. Try that again. I missed. Ladies and gentlemen, your favorite song. Nelly.
Well, I like guns, I like the way they look. I like the shiny steel and the polished wood. I don't care if they're big or small. If they're for sale, well, hell, I want them all. I like guns. I like guns. I like guns.
That doesn't surprise me. I was reading the same story from YDOT that I'm about to give you. And YDOT, of course, did a very biased story. And, okay. So I kind of went through and cleaned it up a little bit and did a story to the opposite side of theirs to give some balance to the world. Here we go. The repeal of gun-free zones sits on Governor Gordon's desk. Now, legislation would end state, county, and government authority to regulate concealed firearms and allow permitted concealed carry in public spaces like schools, Capitol, University of Wyoming. If governor signs it, it would be effective immediately. A lot of times when a bill is signed, it's going to be a while before they finally, but not this time, no. This would allow anyone to walk into a public meeting, open. Let me be very, very careful about this because some people get the wrong idea of what we're talking about. This would not allow anyone to walk into a public meeting openly carrying a rifle or a big pistol on their hip. It's for permitted concealed carry only. So up until now, a bad guy with a gun could walk into these places concealing a gun, and who would know? And law-abiding citizens will obey the law, so they're all going to be unarmed. With this change, law-abiding citizens would also be allowed to carry guns in public places, but they have to be concealed carry. In other words, permitted concealed carry. The law does not apply to private property. Private property owner can make their own rules. Now, there are exemptions for athletic events where alcohol is being sold, facilities like Wyoming Girls and Boys School, and areas where explosive or volatile materials might be present. Okay, so part of what I found, this is from the Heritage Foundation, And we talked about that during this last week. Concealed carry permit holders are not random people, says the Heritage Foundation, but individuals with the government affirmative approval to carry a concealed firearm in public places, having completed a series of, background checks and courses and et cetera, et cetera. FBI documents that, or has documented that 3.2% of active shooters were stopped by concealed carry holders. However, the researchers claim the FBI undercounts the numbers, and it should be more like 16.5%. Crime rates involving those with concealed carry account for about 0.02% of all permit holders. So those are crime rates. When a crime is committed, of any kind, pick your poison, any kind of crime, it's about 0.02% of all are actually concealed carry permit holders, which is pretty much non-existent, right? So Governor Gordon can do one of the several things with it. He can sign the bill. He can veto the bill. Or, which he has done on many occasions, he may not particularly agree with the bill, but that doesn't mean he's not going to stop it from getting through. So he'll just let it pass. He'll go ahead and name, I don't know what he's going to do. He could go ahead and name his reasons for not liking the bill, but just letting it go on and pass anyway.
Even though we all agree that property ownership is a clear vestige of white colonialism, there may be times when it's necessary to protect said colonialist vestige against threats of violence and/or burglary. Since we all know that guns are evil in all circumstances and can never be properly wielded for self-defense, it is your moral obligation to find other, more creative ways of defending your home. Here are 7 more tips for home defense without the use of firearm. Ask the home intruder for his vaccine card. Since the burglar is a bad guy, he will also be unvaccinated and thus not have a vaccine card, and he will be forced to leave the premises. In this house, we believe in science. Before he can shoot you, place a flower in the barrel of his gun. This powerful symbol will show him that love is more powerful than gun. Bust out the guitar. It's Kumbaya time. Inform him that he is burglaring on stolen lands and that he must pay reparations. Now, he may continue stealing, but the reparations will compensate for the value of any lost property. And how? Here's a good trick. Hide under a bed, and when the criminal walks by, grab his ankles and hold on tight. Once he's used up his energy, remove his shoes and start tickling his feet with a feather. By the time you stop, he'll be more scared of you than you are of him. With these techniques, they will no longer be climbing through your windows, snatching your people up. Now you can rest peacefully at night, knowing that the bad guys are at bay, and that you are a morally superior person to those violent gun owners.
This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
6:49 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino waiting by. So, Frank, have you heard? I started this morning with it about the house in Casper that's been hit by a car 3 times.
Oh, yeah, it's right over on 13th over there in McKinley. Yeah.
Yep.
So some lady had a medical thing, went right through the garage.
3rd time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a poor place to put a house.
Now, Jay
but it was built years. It's been there forever.
So Jay in Casper suggests, since the place is either a drive-through or a drive-in anyway, just put a coffee shop there.
Right, so somebody could run into that too?
Well, no. It's already a drive-through. You just go ahead and that's, see, where people tend to hit, that's where you put the drive-through.
Which should be on the left of the house.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, sure. Why not? As long as we're doing this anyway. What gets me is when they put the rocks in front of the house, apparently they left enough of a gap for a car to get through.
Right. somebody wasn't thinking there. I mean, really and why, after it was hit the second time, it was all boarded up and everything?
Yeah.
Say, isn't this condemned or something? You can just kind of tear it down and,
I kept, like everybody else, I kept looking at it. Is anyone ever going to do anything with this house? Yes, they have to hit it one more time. So that really is a magnet of all places. I mean, there's other intersections like that and people aren't plowing through.
Right. But they seem to just...
Yes.
do.
So do you think that house has some kind of a magnet?
I don't know. The guy who did it before claimed that his brakes went out. And he was probably hammered on meth or something.
Okay.
It's been hit 3 times, but thousands of cars have been by it over the years.
Over the years, yeah. So
thousands.
I think 3 times enough just to go ahead and close it. But here's the thing. It's got a cellar, so you got to fill that in. And you got to put a serious wall up or people are going to go over the hill and down below.
Oh, that's true. Very true. The high school basketball season came to an end on Saturday in Casper with the championship games of the 3A and 4A tournament. And 4A boys, Cheyenne East beat Laramie 62-59 to claim their first state title since 2021. Central was led by Joe Sawyer with 19 points, and Laramie got 20 points and 15 rebounds from Neil Summers. The Toronto took third in the tournament, beating Star Valley in the consolation run on Saturday, and Cheyenne East was fifth. They defeated Jackson on Saturday. Powell won the 3A boys title over Wheatland 49-34. That was Powell's first state championship since 1998. On the girls' side, Sheridan won the 4A championship with a 65-56 win over Campbell County. That was Sheridan's first title since 2007. Cheyenne East took third with a win over Cody on Saturday, and Kelly Walsh took fifth with a win over Laramie on Saturday. Douglas won their 4th state title in a row in 3A and 6th out of the last 7 years with a 54-33 win over Buffalo. It's March Madness for the University of Wyoming basketball teams. They'll play in the Mountain West Tournament in Las Vegas this week. Wyoming Cowgirls will play Boise State tonight at 8:30 Mountain Time. The Cowgirls are the 3rd seed at 16-13 overall. Boise State is the 6th seed and beat Utah State in the first round yesterday. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State on Wednesday in Vegas in the opening round of the Mountain West Tournament. The Pokes are 15-16 overall. They are the 8th seed in the tournament and pounded Fresno State over the weekend 86-47. UW outscored the Bulldogs 40-17 in the second half. So Fresno will come into Wednesday's game with a record of 11-20. In men's junior college basketball, Casper College won their Region 9 Region 9 tournament playing game with a 114-94 victory over Eastern Wyoming as Darius Robinson and Abdul Bashir had 33 points each. T-Birds will play McCook in the second round on Thursday at 5 p.m. in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The LCCC men out of Cheyenne beat Western Wyoming on Saturday in their playing game 90-81 as Jordan Reed had 24 for the Golden Eagles. They'll play Western Nebraska on Thursday at 7 p.m. The women's Region 9 tournament will be in Casper, and Casper College, rated 16th in the country, plays McCook on Thursday at 7 p.m. The LCCC women out of Cheyenne lost their play-in games to Eastern Wyoming over the weekend 72-66, so they finished the season 11-18. That's it in sports.
So, Frank, you spent the whole weekend just following sports.
High school basketball.
High school basketball here. Did you get any kind of rest?
I got a little bit. Yeah. This week I'm going to take it slow. I mean, you believe it or not, the track season and the soccer season and the softball season begins this weekend, and I'm just listening to Don Day. I'm like, well, that may not happen.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it happened last year or the year before that either.
So they're going to have this in places where all the weather's coming.
Yeah, well, they won't have it at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. Going to roll into news time after that. National, local update on your weather forecast. Wake Up Wyoming. The time. Double check your time. We did go through daylight saving time during the course of the weekend. It is a Monday.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
So just to set up our next caller here, if you're in the Casper, Wyoming area, you might know about that poorhouse. So there's McKinley, which runs north-south. And 13th Street runs east-west, and 13th ends at McKinley, where there's a traffic light. And on the other side of the traffic light is a house. that has cars 3 times now. Cars have run right through the traffic light and into the house. Not hitting the house, going into the house. And if you're wondering, why didn't they just put up barriers? They did. 3rd time. Doesn't seem to matter. Bob is in Casper. Morning, Bob.
Morning.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I got a suggestion. My uncle had a house like that, and the people kept running into it. He went and got a great big tree and planted in front of in between the 2 rocks.
Right.
And put a big rope in front of the tree, and that put a stop to him driving through.
Okay. Needs something there. It was the gap between the rocks that got me. Now, according to some other listener, there was a rock there, but apparently some vehicle big enough hit it and pushed both the car and both the rock went into the house, is what he's telling me.
Yeah, well, the tree behind it, buried in the ground, a great big tree, and it just slid it back into the tree, and it didn't... It made a good barrier.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I would like to try there. How about cannons? I don't know, something just to stop people. I put a big barrier up with a lot of lights on it, although that doesn't help a guy who's having a heart attack, I know, but...
No, it don't stop that.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. No, this has been the problem with this house. I remember the last time, which would be the 2nd time the house was hit, and that's where I noticed there was a gap between these huge boulders that were put in front of the house to prevent someone running through the house, and yet somebody managed to go right in between those boulders. And then the hole in the house was covered up by a bunch of wood and so on, and over a year has gone by, about a year and a half. And like everybody else, I'm wondering, is anyone ever going to do something with that house? Fix it up or tear it down, do something. Well, now the hole is back. So we got to figure out what to do. All right. Like I say, you can tear down the house. They can do that. Of course, then the property owner's out a lot. And then there's the problem of tearing down the house. That leaves a cellar. So that would have to be filled in. And you'd still have to close the gap because how a car could drive right through what's now an empty lot and down the hill into a dirt road back alley below. And that could kill somebody. So, got to figure something out. And I also mentioned last hour, there are several places around this same town of Casper where there's guardrails that have just gotten the daylights beaten out of them. What is wrong, people? That you just okay? Someone suggested it might be a Casper problem. I don't know. All right. Biden mentioned shrinkflation, right? Couple of articles that I found here. First one is called "If You're Shrinking and You Know It, Clap Your Hands." Suffering, and by the way, when the president mentioned shrinkflation, did the rest of us already know that sometimes that happens? Not really big news, right? Okay. And you let the free market settle stuff like that, because if I find that some companies charging the same price but giving me less, I might quit doing business with them. See, the free market handles that. But all right, suffering with whiplash, the story says, as they did last night's live blogging, and this guy is watching the State of the Union address, was one of the most memorable, he writes, spastic moments besides the assassination of Bobby Cunningham. Don't ask. So he doesn't want to revisit the whole thing. All right, shrinkflation. He said 10:06. From chips to collection. Told you I would keep up. He's having us save the chips without the chips. He's reading here. Someone's fact-checking him. Here we go. Let's go ahead and fact-check the president on this.
Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower.
Okay, false. Let's fact-check that. Biden took office. The inflation rate was 1.4%, and real wages were positive. Since he took office, the costs were up 17.9%, and real wages were down 2%. Okay, that's fact-checking President Joe Biden on the whole shrinkflation thing. Quote, under Joe Biden, grocery bills are up while food portions are down. Shrinkflation has been blamed on greedy corporation when it's actually Bidenomics. Okay, and then they show some charts and graphs and stuff like that. Let's see. There's one other on shrinkflation. Quote, Joe Biden is lying about the size of your Snickers bar. Okay, because that's something he does cite. You know, that Snickers bar of yours, the story says, in fact, snack companies think you don't notice if they change the size of a bag and put up a hell of a lot fewer or same size bag with fewer chips in it. He says it's called shrinkflation, said Joe Biden. Okay. Pass Bobby Casey's bill. I really mean it, said Joe. You probably saw that commercial on Snickers bars, and, well, you get charged the same amount, but even though there's 10% less Snickers in it. Let me see what the president said about that.
Commercial on Snickers bars. And you get charged the same amount, and you got about, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees. Those hidden fees at the end of your bill.
Okay, first off, what I pointed out to with the president and junk fees is, Mr. Biden, Mr. President, if you want to get rid of junk fees, let's start with the government and its junk fees. All right, so fewer Snickers. Snickers isn't a specific ingredient. It's the name of a candy bar. So he said it like there were fewer peanuts or something like that. A CNN conservative contributor believes Biden's claim, didn't believe him. So he reached out to the Mars Candy Company, which makes Snickers. Sure enough, Biden, they say, is not telling the truth. The company released a statement. So this, the company that makes your Snickers bar says they have not reduced the size of Snickers singles or share size in the U.S. like many industries. We continue to face high inflation and spikes in material costs. However, we work to absorb those extra costs whenever possible to provide affordable treats at the best value. Final prices were always the direction of the retailer, but we make every effort to minimize costs and provide a full range of delicious products. So they're denying that they've reduced the size of your Snickers bar. I might want to go weigh one of them to find out. By the way, let me go back real quick on this one. There's something I do complain about when it comes to these candy bar companies. When they say things like the share size. A while back, I went and bought some M&Ms because I like M&Ms occasionally, right? And I bought some M&Ms, and it said fun size. Now, the fun size packet was a small package, maybe like a handful. I don't consider that to be fun. I would have to have at least 10 of those packs before I started having fun. Then I picked up a bag that was the shareable size, and I looked at it and thought, do you honestly think I am going to be sharing this with anybody? This is not a shareable size.
Almond milk? Who bought almond milk? That's not a thing, is it? I mean, you can't get milk from almonds. Almonds don't even have udders.
Yep, there you have it. A new level of crazy. And you heard it here first. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. On air, online, and on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is K2 Radio.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Let's just pause for a minute and go do something that I think might be worth seeing because I believe I've seen a few commercials for this thing. On the phone with me is it Joanna?
It's Johanna. Good morning.
Johanna, I'm sorry. I looked at that and I thought, I'm going to get this wrong. I know I am. And I'm not even going to attempt your last name. I'm not even trying it. How do you pronounce
Schweiger.
it? Wait, say it again?
Schweiger. It's a German name. It's Austrian.
Okay. Because I'm a little bit dyslexic, so I looked at all of the letters in that, and I went, this is just going to destroy me. It really is. All right. There's a beautiful show that's coming to the Cheyenne Civic Center March 12th and 13th. Can you describe it for us? Because this just seems very colorful.
Oh, yeah. It is beautiful is an understatement. So Shen Yun is a breathtaking performance that takes you through 5,000 years of ancient Chinese civilization. And the dancers do that with dance, music, acrobatics, humor. It's just such a rich and beautiful, entertaining show. But it's not just a performance. It's also really truly connecting with the real Chinese culture, the culture that was lost almost before communism in China.
Right. Okay, because China at one point was one of the most advanced civilizations on the planet. I mean, way ahead of everybody else. And not just in science, but also in the arts as well. And what gets me about it is not just the incredible dance. The acrobatics are just about unbelievable. But all the costumes, I mean, I don't even know. I would have to see the show probably more than once to take it all in.
Yeah, I hope you get to see it. It's an incredible show. It is so unique and different. And as you say, Chinese culture is not easy to access anymore because it was almost lost. And it's 5,000 years, and it's so rich in wisdom and beauty. And for us as Westerners to unlayer, you get to see that unfold on stage because these dancers really bring the authenticity back that is rooted in Taoism and Buddhism. And you get to see these beautiful divine scenes also coming to life with a 3D backdrop. So these dancers, which is a huge choreography, it's a lot of dancers, choreographers that worked on this very hard. They interact with the backdrop. So you get to see these divine scenes, heavenly scenes, with the dancers on stage live. It's incredible. It's something you've never seen before.
Where do the performers come from?
So the performers, most of them origin from China, but you would be surprised. The show is not created in China. It's created in the United States. And that is because these artists want to bring back the authentic China, which was suppressed by the Chinese Communist Party, by the government in China for the last decade. So they started in New York, and believe it or not, this show in China is banned. You cannot watch it in China, but everywhere else in the world.
Oh. You may or may not know this. How many performers are in the show?
So the exact number, I don't know, but it's a very large choreography.
Yeah,
so you'll get to see like over 20, 30 performers, and then you have a large orchestra live performing that blends East and West. Okay. So it's a lot of artists that you get to see on stage. And there's 8 companies touring the world simultaneously, so there's a lot of performers, and they get trained at the Fei Tian Academy in New York, which is now an academy where they specifically dedicate themselves to bring back the unique dances from all these dynasties. So it is authentic, but don't think it's just cultural. It's for everybody. It's for children. It's for every age. It's very funny. It's very rich. You get to see martial art elements. So there's something for everybody. When I saw the show for the first time, I was so amazed to see the similarities with ballet. But Chinese classical dance is different than ballet. It has not only a set of 5 movements, it has a lot more movements and also acrobatics.
So, and here's what gets me, how athletic the performers have to be, because besides the martial arts and the dance, and then you throw acrobatics, and in many cases, all 3 are combined. Wow, these people have to be in top shape.
Yeah, the synchronicity, the combination of acrobatics and dance, and so refined. It's really world-class dancers, and it takes many years to get to that incredible level. So that is truly amazing. But it's not only the dance techniques that is amazing, also the storytelling. So each piece has a specific story that there's also a translation. So first there's an MC showing the audience shortly, telling the audience what's going to happen. And then you see in one piece a story. And it's moving, either it's funny or it's moving your heart. So when I see the reviews of people, they're always either moved to tears or really emotional or really like laughing a lot. So it's very emotional.
Right. I know the music's going to be very different. Is the music explained to the audience?
There's a funny bit where also the music is going to be explained, but it's a classical orchestra combined with Chinese traditional music instruments, which is new. That hasn't happened before. It's combined the two. Okay.
Well, people need to go see this, which is going to be March 12th and 13th. So how do they get on board?
So you can go directly on shenyun.com, and the show is tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, in Shenyun Civic Center. So make sure you get your tickets, because I truly believe that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience nobody should miss. And on shenyun.com, please go online, get your ticket as quickly as possible. There's still tickets available. And I really hope you get to see it. When I saw it the first time, I was truly inspired, uplifted, and amazed.
All right. Hey, thank you for coming on this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for talking to me. Thank
Absolutely. You. All right. So 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Yeah, the commercials actually did look really incredible for that. All right. Back to what we were talking before about Biden and Bidenomics and how much he misrepresented or the State of the Union address regarding inflation and things like that. Red in Casper says to me, you're doing it wrong. First, you destroy the economy, then you improve it slightly and say you've made it better. Okay. Or you just lie and rig the numbers, which is often the case. Well, this is where here's a great example of this. I was reading an article this morning. In fact, I might have it. I'll see if I can find it real quick. That had to do with unemployment numbers. And it may sound like, wow, we're really getting full employment here. This is looking fantastic. And then you take a look at who is actually getting a job and what kind of a job they're getting. Let's see, Biden's claim is a deficit. I'll get to the deficit at some point here. There's shrinkflation. Here we go. Give it a moment while this loads in front of me here. So the headline is, here are some job stats Democrats don't want you to see. Now I'll just see if I can scroll on down to, here we go. Shifting from quarantine to quantitative assets, new jobs, consider this, all the way up until 2024. The U.S. had 132.9 million full-time jobs and 27.9 part-time jobs. Well, that's great until you look back and find out that in February 2023, the U.S. had 133.2 million full-time jobs, or more than it does 1 year later. And yes, there has been job growth, but it's in part-time jobs. And not a whole lot that's really earning a good wage. So in other words, the president's saying, look at, boy, we're getting close to full employment. There's more to it than that. There's also, we have to take a look at the U6 index, which is the workforce participation rate as well. Coming up on 7:30, local news, weather forecast, Wake Up Wyoming.
Want to talk to Glenn? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030, K2 Radio.
.36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So, okay, real quick, let me get into the budget. I know this can be a real snooze sometime, but State of Wyoming at the last minute. This went back and forth quite a bit. Our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, kept telling me that, hey, they're going to pass the budget. They're done. Okay, they're not done, but they are. But they're not. They might have to go into special session, but they won't. But they'll just extend the session for 3 days. But nobody wants to do that, so they're not going to. But they've passed the budget that they haven't passed. Okay, so finally, this weekend, headline from our man in Cheyenne, Doug. Wyoming lawmakers passed $10.6 billion budget for next 2 years. Let's see, they passed a compromise. Budget bill passed the House 41-42, much closer in the Senate, 17-14. Not everybody's happy with this thing. The $10.6 billion includes the final budget was roughly halfway between the budget originally passed on both houses. See, now, in some things, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I got part of it. Like, for example, not allowing the governor to just have discretionary spending when it came to energy. I want oversight. And in fact, most of that money I don't even want spending on, because government should stay out of the economy. Spending money on all sorts of different projects, no matter what those projects are, most of it has nothing to do with the role of government, in my more libertarian opinion. So what they did was, the original money, which was going to be quite a bit, was cut in more than half for the governor for discretionary spending on energy products and so on. Not what I wanted, but closer to what I wanted, but still, all right. At least he didn't get the whole enchilada, right? I still want to find out what happened with the University of Wyoming, because there were efforts to cut out things like the DEI office at the University of Wyoming, because we don't need, in fact, it's actually detrimental to have an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I don't know if there was cuts to University of Wyoming or not. We'll see. But again, as I went through the budget in general, I saw, I got about halfway to where I wanted. Non-budget issue. Property taxes legislation on the last day approved 3 or more property tax relief bills. And you can see in Doug's story, it's on the Wake Up Wyoming website, he goes through those bills. So there were 3 different property tax bills that were passed through. Let's see what the governor does when he gets them. Because now is the point where the governor has 3 choices. He can sign the bill, veto the bill, or grumble about what he doesn't like about the bill, but say, but I'm not going to touch it. He doesn't sign it or not sign it. It just becomes law if he leaves it alone. All right. Gun-free zones, that passed. So there's fewer gun-free zones in the state of Wyoming. I have an article on that on the Wake Up Wyoming site. The gun-free zone thing has to do with allowing people who have a permit to conceal carry to do so in a school, including University of Wyoming, but also city council meetings and libraries and et cetera, like that. Okay, so that was passed. And then finally, the bill on sex change for minors, Senate File 99, originally known as Chloe's Law, sailed through both houses. And although the Wyoming House did not amend the bill to eliminate the law title, the bill essentially outlaws sex change and medical procedures for people under the age of 18. Although it does include some medical exemptions, the bill is, and it talks about who the bill is sponsored by. There was one other I want to see a little bit more of. I was glad the governor vetoed a bill. It had to do with charter schools. So, much to my surprise, the House and Senate did not want to approve any more charter schools for the state of Wyoming. And some bill passed basically capping the number of charter schools for the state of Wyoming. The governor vetoed that bill and said that school choice is an important thing in Wyoming. Okay, so we'll see where that goes. We'll see how that goes. And then there was something I have to go look up. There was something that had to do with school choice and vouchers in the state of Wyoming. I'm not sure what the rest of that is. I saw several different stories on it, but none of them gave me the complete explanation as to whether that had passed or not. But I'm glad the governor vetoed the bill. No, we should have school choice. We should have more charter schools in the state of Wyoming. I consider that to be a good thing. So on that one, I'm with the governor on. So again, in my opinion, not everything that I really wanted, but at least we got a good step closer to it. If I were in charge of the budget, because I watched a Wyoming PBS interview with Senate President Ogden Driscoll, and he would have actually spent quite a bit more. And next time I have a chance to talk with him, I'm just going to tell him, word up to me, Ogden, I would take a red pen, and by the time I got done with that budget, you would not like me. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming goes anywhere you do with the Wake Up Wyoming app. Free download for Apple and Android. This is K2 Radio.
7:45 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Time to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. So there I was with you in Cheyenne, Wyoming on Thursday and Friday. And as we talked about during that time, Cheyenne got a pretty good amount of snow. In fact, the highway, I-80, heading east out into Nebraska, they closed that for a while, Don.
Down the road at Interstate 80, parts of Nebraska got upwards to 15 to 17 inches of snow over towards the North Platte area. So that shut down I-80 eastbound into Nebraska. That doesn't happen nearly as often as the other direction.
Yeah, okay, that's what surprised me. Having said that, though, when we got to Saturday and Sunday, a little breezy in places, but those were nice days.
Oh, the weekend was really good.
Yeah.
For early March, that was a really good weekend.
Okay. Now, I am watching the witches stir the pot, though. I'm just not sure how this is going to come together.
Yeah, it's March, so there's going to be some ups and downs. And for today and for most of tomorrow, we're going to continue with mild weather. Temperatures will be above average. We'll have high mid-level cloudiness around and a little bit of wind. But basically a continuation of what we had over the weekend, just more clouds around. We'll start to see tonight and Tuesday some snow showers around Jackson, up into Yellowstone Park. Pacific moisture starts to increase ahead of what is going to be the combination of a Canadian cold front coming out of Alberta and a low pressure system that's going to settle down into the Great Basin states here at the end of the week. And they're going to work together. And a large part of Wyoming is going to see some snow. I think just about all of the state's going to be impacted somehow, but it looks like the heaviest snow is going to be along I-80 and I-25 in the southeast, and then along Interstate 80 to Salt Lake, and then same spots in Nebraska that got the heavy snow last week could get it again, and down into Denver as well. So we're going to see some travel concerns in those areas I just outlined, but I see accumulating snow getting as far north as Casper, Douglas, and Lusk, back over to Lander and Riverton. As you get up to the northern part of the state, the amounts will be lighter. But still some fairly good chances for some rain and snow up there as well.
And it looked like the Bighorns might get a pretty good dose.
They're going to. This is not a great pattern for the Bighorns to get a lot of snow, but they'll get some. This is definitely a system that's going to be a southern Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska system in terms of where the heaviest moisture is going to go.
It's been really interesting to me how there's sections of Wyoming that have really done well this winter as far as snowpack, and then a few areas that, well, they wish they had that snow.
Well, yeah. When you look at Wyoming, look how big it is. You know, it's the size of a European country. Mm-hmm. And so you get a lot. You don't. That's the one thing about Wyoming and the weather. You never get a situation where everybody's going to get about the same. Mm-hmm. There's going to be differences no matter where you are, especially with our very unique terrain. So Wyoming is a lot of area to cover with a forecast.
I did, just to wrap it up real quick though, I did notice, we've talked about this before. We've had some years where northeastern Wyoming just got buried and everybody else was left out. And then the next year, the opposite happened.
That's right. And with this being an El Nino winter, the bias for the heavier moisture is always going to be more south.
Okay.
Now, once we get out of El Nino, which is happening right now, it's beginning to weaken, and we go into next winter. Right. Well, maybe it's next winter that part of the state gets picked on.
All right. Thank you, Don. Don Day with Day Weather. Yeah, it's always interesting to me how those patterns shape up like that. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by.
So it's going to snow this weekend?
Yeah. Now, just imagine. Now you had plans to go. Where were you going?
Well, I could have, like on the high school end. Yeah. There's a track meet, believe it or not, on Saturday scheduled for Casper. There is a softball jamboree scheduled for Cheyenne Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And there's a soccer jamboree scheduled for Friday and Saturday in Gillette.
Okay.
My guess is going to be 0 for 3.
Yeah. Now, according to Don, from what we were just talking about there, in the southern part of the state, don't even bother. You'll get some weather in Casper. You'll do great in Gillette.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, makes your whole plan. So I did notice, thank you very much for go ahead and clearing out the vehicle. I ran it through a car wash for you.
Did you?
So I could drive it. There you go.
Did you find anything in the back seat?
There's a couple of gloves back there.
Yeah, those were, and they don't match, I'm sure.
No, they don't. But now I have
a hat and an umbrella.
Yeah, and you'll be happy to know that the clock has been adjusted.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Because I agonize over that.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's just I don't know how to, you know.
Yeah, okay. I did. See, I thought about that because I saw a meme this morning. Hey, the clock in my car is finally right. And I knew immediately that's a daylight saving time joke right there. But it depends on what kind of car you have as to whether it's easy to change the clock or not.
Yeah, my stove and my microwave still are on 2 different times than we are on now. And I can't figure out.
No, here's what you do. One of them, you label it. Get a labeler and label fall, you know. And then the other one, you know, I mean, so you know which one is which.
Right,
and spring for the other one. That way you know which one to look at depending on the time of year.
Or you could say, this is California.
Yes, that's
this
right.
This is Florida. High school basketball, the season came to an end on Saturday with the championship games in 3A and 4A. In the 4A boys bracket, Cheyenne East beat Laramie 62-59 to claim their first state title since 2021. Central was led by Joe Sawyer with 19, and Laramie got 20 points and 15 rebounds from Neil Summers. The Toronto took third in the tournament, beating Star Valley in the consolation round on Saturday, and Cheyenne East was fifth. They defeated Jackson on Saturday. Powell won the 3A boys title 49-34 over Wheatland. It was Powell's first state championship since 1998. On the girls' side, Sheridan won the 4A championship with a 65-56 win over Campbell County. That was Sheridan's first state title since 2007. Cheyenne East took third with a win over Cody on Saturday, and Kelly Walsh took fifth with a victory over Laramie on Saturday. Douglas won their fourth state title in a row and their sixth in the last 7 years with a 54-33 win over Buffalo. It's March Madness for the University of Wyoming teams in basketball. They'll play in the Mountain West Conference Tournament in Las Vegas this week. The Cowgirls will play Boise State tonight at 8:30 Mountain Time. The Cowgirls are the third seed with a record of 16-13 overall. Boise State is the sixth seed and beat Utah State in the first round yesterday. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State on Wednesday in Vegas in the opening round of the Mountain West Tournament. The Cowboys are 15-16 overall and the eighth seed in the tournament. They pounded Fresno State over the weekend, 86-47. UW outscored the Bulldogs 40-17 in the second half of that game. So Wednesday looks to be a winnable game from Wyoming's point of view as Fresno State comes in with a record of 11-20. In men's junior college basketball, Casper College won their Region 9 tournament play-in game on Saturday with a 114-94 victory over Eastern Wyoming. Darius Robinson as well as Abdul Bashir had 33 points each. The Birds will play at McCook in the second round on Thursday at 5 p.m. in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The LCCC men beat Western Wyoming on Saturday in their play-in game, 90-81. Jordan Reed had 24 for the Eagles, so they will take on Western Nebraska in the second round of the Region 9 tournament on Thursday at 7 p.m. The women's Region 9 tournament will be in Casper. Casper College, rated 16th in the country, plays McCook, Nebraska on Thursday at 7 p.m. The LCCC women out of Cheyenne lost their play-in game over the weekend, the Eastern Wyoming 72-66, and they finished the year 11-18. That's it in sports.
I just came across, while you were talking there, I was about to put away some things I had read to you, and then I came across this, a prediction from 1949.
49.
Computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. Tons. Yeah.
I didn't even know they were thinking about computers in 49.
They were working on them. You know,
okay.
Nothing like
tons.
Today, but tons.
Now we're talking ounces.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how heavy is your cell phone?
Not very.
And it does far more than a computer.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Frank. Coming up on it's amazing how far we've come. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. And we'll get into open phones, too. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. 888-97. WOODS, Wake Up Wyoming. Check yourself. Some people get confused on the Monday after daylight saving time. Time is 8:06. Yeah, I just double check and forget what the clock in your car says. It's probably wrong.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
In fact, it was Sunday. I woke up at my usual time, which is a little before 2 in the morning, out of the habit of going to work, right? And I closed my eyes and opened them again. And all of a sudden, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And my brain went, did I just sleep for another hour? No, the clock had changed. Yeah, it'll throw you if you're not prepared.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 with the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. It's the most dangerous time of the day. I give you open phones at some point every day. So change the subject if you want. Fine by me. Other people are sending me notes over the Wake Up Wyoming app, which is free to download at your app store. You just go to your app store to type in Wake Up Wyoming, and down it comes. Again, it's free. It gives you lots of neat things you can do, and we don't charge you for any of it. One of them is while this program is on the air, people hit the chat option and send me text messages, and I answer back on air and off the air. But also that helps the conversation across the entire region and across the radio stations that carry this program. We all get to talk to each other through the phone and through the app. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to go back to those people who had joined me at 6 o'clock this morning. Pardon me while I repeat myself for those people who just tuned in now, because you got to hear this, folks. In Casper, Wyoming, and I'm familiar with this area, there is a street that runs north-south. It's called McKinley. All right. It's a main drag running north and south, McKinley. Then there's an east-west road, 13th. Another main drag and a one-way road, but runs east-west. 13th, if you're heading east, will end at McKinley. There's a traffic light. And across the street from the traffic light is a row of big boulders. The boulders were placed there on purpose because some years ago, just a few years ago, someone ran the red light. I'm not sure why. And went right through the house that's there. And it's an older house. The car just didn't hit the house. It went into the house. All right, well, insurance company steps up, pays for all the repairs. And so they place in front of the house these huge boulders, with between two of them just enough of a gap to allow a car to pass through. I mean, it is narrow, barely enough room. And by golly, somebody did it. Now, the guy said his brakes didn't work. I don't know what the story there was, but the guy went right through the traffic light and right into the house, second time. Winding up in the living room, I believe, again. Okay, so for the longest time, about a year and a half now, the house has had wood on the front that they've just put a temporary wall up to cover the hole. And like a lot of people, if I ever drive by that, I wonder, are they ever going to fix that? A lot of people in Casper have wondered, are they ever going to fix that? They're going to tear the house down? What are they going to do? It's been about a year and a half. During the course of this weekend, a man was driving down 13th and approaching that light, and he had some kind of a medical emergency, which caused him to miss the light. His foot went heavy on the accelerator, and he happened to find that same exact spot between those two rocks. His car just barely fitting through, and he went right into that house again, third time. Yeah, so the owner of the house, I mean, I don't know what he's going to do with the insurance companies. I have no idea how the insurance company even handles that. Do they fill the gap so there's no space in between those big boulders and nobody can get through? How do they solve this? Some people have said just demolish the house. Well, okay, but then the property owner loses a lot of money there. I don't know, he's not going to be able to sell it, right? I mean, I don't know. The house has a cellar, so they would have to fill in the cellar if they did that. Or somebody's going to end up getting through and going down into the cellar. And you got to worry about someone being able to get across the empty lot and down the hill because there's a utility road, a little dirt road beneath there. So what do they do here? Or do they rebuild? I wouldn't want to live there anyway, just because it's a really busy intersection as it is. But whatever you do, folks, fill the gap. It's just big enough for a car to get through, and by golly, people seem to find it every single time. All right, so there's that. You can change the topic if you want. 888-97-WOODS is the number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you haven't heard, according to the cult of climate change, you are in the apocalypse.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
Okay, so if I ever saw something like this, I would make sure, and I'm not somebody who really complains if I'm ever at a restaurant. It's got to be really bad for me to complain. I mean, extraordinarily bad. This is something I would actually call the manager over and let him know I'm never coming back until they fix this. We're going to go up to Canada. A Toronto restaurant now charges a carbon fee. Now, they're not the first to have done this. I think I remember of some restaurants in California doing the same thing. But here's the story. Not cheap to eat out, as you know. Now, let's make your wallet hurt a little bit more. Goodfellas Pizzeria in Toronto has started charging a 2% carbon fee on their bills. Now, before I go on with this, I kind of wonder, are they doing this because they're trying to send the money to some cause? Or is the Canadian government now charging for companies' carbon footprints, in which case the company's passing the cost on to you? Well, all right, let's read on. Local man recently dined at a restaurant and noticed a new fee on the bill. When asked if the carbon fee would make him think twice before dining at the establishment or any other, he said he could probably live with 2%, but they start charging 10%, he's done. He's going to start cooking at home. This guy is seriously saying he's going to wait until the restaurant carbon fee, doubles before taking a stand. So how much methane do they expect you to produce after consuming the pizza? That's what I want to know. You eat the pizza, you're going to start producing methane, right? You are. Not, the animal. You are. Do they take that and consume? Because they're talking about calculating how much of a carbon footprint to make the pizza. Well, how much of a methane production happens after you eat the pizza? Okay, so how do they justify this fee? Well, okay. The bottom of the receipt. What we eat fuels climate change. This is at the bottom of the receipt. What we eat fuels climate change. Adding 2% to every restaurant bill to invest in carbon capture will help offset our carbon footprint. Please visit goodfellowpizza.com to learn more. So they're claiming that this is going to go to carbon capture. So if I pay this restaurant, maybe it'll make the weather gooder? I'm so smart. This type of carbon fee is not the norm in Toronto, but give it time. Other people will start doing stuff like that too. And again, I've heard of the same kind of thing in places like California, as an example. Oh, hang on. I got more of this nonsense. Let's see. Customers carbon fee pushing back against. And there's a manufacturing group over here. EU. Okay. And then I do have a story coming up for you truckers out there when it comes to California. A study finds California semi-truck electrification comes with an enormous cost, not just for the truckers, but for the customers out there.
Just so we're clear on the scale of the issue, each electric vehicle battery for a heavy-duty truck weighs 8,000 pounds, and you need at least 2 of them. So we're talking the weight of, 4 or 5 cars. And my friends and peers in the industry nationwide who have tried to make efforts to put in, say, hey, I'm going to convert a dozen forklifts to electric, or I want to tee up a facility for 30 electric trucks. There's no power. The utilities come back, the cities come back and say, is this some kind of joke? One friend tried to put in Illinois a facility, tee it up for 30 trucks electrification. The city came back and said, this is some kind of joke. You're asking for more draw than the entire city requires. And just to give you an idea, 30, 50 trucks, that's like a 5-6 megawatt application. The factory that makes the trucks is a 2 megawatt factory.
If it matters in Wyoming, it matters to Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Call Glenn at 888-97-WOODS and make your voice heard. AM 1030, K2 Radio.
8:21's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Phone number 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. Hang on, Rick. Let me set you up real quick. For those just joining us, there's a house in Casper, Wyoming that for the third time has had a car run right through it into the living room. Even though they put a bunch of big rocks out in front of the house. To prevent cars from being able to do that, there was just enough space for a car to get through. Third time this has happened now. Rick is in Cheyenne. Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good, sir. What you got?
Real quick question. First, is the house the problem or is the street the problem?
Yeah. Okay. To me...
The second would be...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Well, I don't think that the house would be, although I often look at houses located in places like that and think I wouldn't, because I worry about the people. All that's happening is 13th Street ends at McKinley, and there's a traffic light. So you're supposed to turn left or right. That's it. That shouldn't be a problem, I would think, right?
Well, the second one is why should the homeowner suffer because of poor infrastructure designed by the city?
Right. Okay. Now,
that's one of the roles of government.
Yeah.
Security, safety, and infrastructure.
Sure. So now I wonder, I don't know, who put the big boulders in front of the house and who didn't think to make sure that they were tight enough? Because, again, the hole is, I've thought about this before, is just big enough to get the average size car through. And yet, twice now, cars have managed to navigate that hole. This last time, some guy was having a medical emergency, and his foot went heavy as he basically was passing out, and he still managed to make it through that tiny hole.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and then he could put a tripping curb there, a curb that's not a standard height.
Okay. Yeah, that would work. But, yeah, I would say they need more rocks to start. And these aren't just, rocks. These are massive boulders that are there. So drop a few more, and it would be an interesting question to me. Is that something the city should do, or is that something the city's going to say it's your property, it's your responsibility?
I think it's the city's issue because they're the one that creates the street.
Okay. All right. Now, there are some other cases that I've seen. You ever look at a house on the corner somewhere and think I wouldn't be there?
Yes, and the golf course in Cheyenne at the end of the street of Dell Range and Yellowstone. They take that all the time.
Okay. Well, there you go. I bet you it's a real cheap purchase.
It really is.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to insure it.
Nope.
All right. Thank you for calling, Rick. I appreciate it. All right, some of the other comments I'm getting here. Let's see. There we go. White Eagle. What they need to do is build one of those loop things like stunt riders use. Build it at the intersection. When the car comes speeding through the intersection, they just hit the loop and it redirects them around the house. And then I got another note here from a gentleman who's saying that he has seen an SUV hit one of those big rocks, not in Casper, but somewhere else, and just went up and over the rock, despite the size of the rock. All right, now back to the restaurant thing that's in Toronto that has the 2% carbon fee. Dan in Cheyenne, any restaurant that adds any charge for carbon will lose my business, which I agree. I would just let the manager know, and I would also make it very public, because today we have social media, and I have a radio show, things like that. But even if you don't have a radio show, and then you can just go ahead and use social media or whatever, and just let people know, hey, you know what they're doing here? That's outrageous. I wouldn't pay any. I don't care if it's a nickel. I'm not paying it. I'm not going to pay your carbon fee. Sorry, no. Now, Fire Pit Paul in Cheyenne brings up a good point on this. I want to see the books, he says, to see if the restaurant were actually forwarding the carbon fee. If they can't prove it, sue for fraud. Yeah, well, you can sue for fraud or just let everybody know they're not actually sending it. They're keeping the money. But even then, if they spend the money on carbon sequestration, I've written articles in the past and shown, and this is why I hate that Wyoming is trying to get into carbon sequestration. It hasn't been working. Places that have tried to sequester carbon have failed at doing it. So what's the point of this? So, hey, look, the business, it's their business. They're allowed to do whatever they want. But as a customer, I'm allowed to do what I want. And so I'm just going to let them know, you attach this kind of a fee, I'm not going to pay it. I'm not coming here anymore. If you decide to get rid of it, I'll come back, but I'm not doing this. Jim and Laramie, how about an aircraft recovery sketch across the gap between, stretch, airport recovery net stretch between the gap between the rocks. That would work. Actually, Jim, here's an idea. You know those trucker grades, like when you're driving down a steep Wyoming mountain pass, and they have those trucker runoffs? Okay, that's what we do. Rather than trying to put rocks there, we have one of those trucker runoffs with all of those wires that catch the vehicle on the way through, stopping it before the house. You know what I want to do now is, I want to go get some cameras and put it at that intersection so I can catch the next car that goes through, assuming there will be one. Corey from Nebraska, he said that intersection needs a roundabout. Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. Whatever the case is, 3 times now. But I know I keep repeating it, sorry, but it keeps sticking in my head. What gets me is when I take a look at the little gap. These are big boulders. I mean, a machine had to bring in these things. These are big boulders. They're big enough to stop a car. And there's just enough space between 2 of them to squeeze a car through. And yet these cars keep making it through that exact spot and right into the living room of the house. Okay. First thing I think of is more boulders. Then you got to explain it to your insurance company and build a house again. I still wouldn't want to live there because I don't want to live on an intersection right there. It's so busy. I would hate to have that going on in my front yard. Those 2 13th ends and McKinley goes the other way, and there's a light right there. And that's, if I sit out on my front steps, that's what I'm looking at. Now, again, it's affordable if you're trying to save money. 8:29 is the time, rolling into local news, update on your weather forecast, and a nice long segment of open phones. 888-97 Woods. Neil and Casper, I see your note. I'll get to you right after news and weather. Wake up, Wyoming.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97 Woods.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Jan in Cheyenne says there's an apartment complex on North College there in Cheyenne. Straight, not an intersection, that has had a car in the apartment twice that I'm aware of. You know, Jan, also, if you go along, the Walmart on the west side of town, there's an apartment complex there. People who drive by, they leave the Walmart and they're driving out past the post office on that side of town. And there's an apartment building, and people have gone, they have to go through a ditch. This is what gets me. There's a big ditch. They go through the ditch somehow. Well, actually, it's more like a drop-off than a ditch, but still, it acts sort of ditch-ish. And then they go right through an apartment building that's there, too. Also, I've seen, in certain areas, there's S-turns, right? Like Platte River has an S-turn in one area that I'm thinking of. And there's a guardrail around the Platte River. And the guardrail has just been torn up by cars that have slammed into it. Now, what the hell's going on? I don't understand. G-Man in Gillette, I grew up in Casper. That house has been hit more than that. Really? Okay. Those boulders used to sit down on 2nd Street and Country Club to keep vehicles from going through that intersection into the neighborhood. Did not know that. Thank you, G-Man. Okay, now some people have sent me notes saying those boulders are actually for the house next to it. Well, the answer is I drive by that area now and then. Both houses, it seems to me, have boulders in front of them. It's not just the one house. Both houses do. But the house that's been hit 3 times happens to have a gap in between the boulders. But yeah, when I drive by, I look and I see boulders in front of both places. I am right in Evansville. They never repair that house after the last time. Major eyesore, tear it down, add more rocks. Okay. Well, there are just certain places that I look at and I say, what a really nice house. I really like that house. I just hate where the house is. That happens a lot. I just don't like where the house is. And in many cases, I think, you're just asking to get hit by putting the house there. Now, as you know, chances are when the house was built, it wasn't a problem. And we see that a lot. Houses are built in an area where at the time it made complete sense. But as we started to grow over the years, eventually why is that house there? That's horrible. And I know I've seen, no matter where you might live. Now, for those people who live in Wyoming and you're kind of out somewhere, it's not as much of a problem for you. But if you're in a town, you've seen homes that the road has grown. What was just a dirt road became a wider paved road, maybe with sidewalks, became a multi-lane road. And now you have houses that are like right on the edge. Didn't used to be that way. They used to have plenty of front yard. They don't have a front yard at all anymore. And you might wonder, well, why does somebody live there? In many cases, they don't. The houses don't have anyone. But if somebody is there, I always figured it's got to be because it's really affordable. That's about the only reason I could think that anybody lives in a house that's right on some, and I can think of, as I'm talking to you, there's many houses, not just in Wyoming, but across the country that I've seen, that are like right on an intersection in the worst possible way. And I look at it and I think there's no way in hell I would live there. Not just because it's horrible to look out the door and windows and see all this really close traffic and all the noise, but then you got to wonder, besides all the traffic and all the noise and all that, you got to wonder about the danger of it. So I'll keep you posted as to what happens in the Casper house. Real quick, let's head on back to the cult of climate change here. Greta Thunberg. This is how kids dance in collars these days, with Greta's angry face staring down off of big screens as they work up a sweat. She gives them the evil eye. How dare you? Okay, let's see. Manufacturers push back against EV mandating. That's a good one. Oh, this is not going as smoothly. You keep hearing from some people, everybody's going to be driving an EV by 2050. I doubt that. As Governor J.B. Pritzker continues to push his goal of having more, what they call zero emissions vehicle in Illinois. And as you know, there's no such thing as a zero emission vehicle. That doesn't exist. No, emissions do not come out of the vehicle itself, but that doesn't matter. They come later on, or further on down the line when the vehicle is being charged. One group says the country is rushing to ban sales of new gas vehicles. The American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers said federal and state governments are fast-tracking policies to limit consumer choice. Quote, the fact that customers in a couple of years are literally going to be robbed of their ability to choose is basically something we need to fight against. So, electric vehicles are going to be commonplace. This is a quote, okay? Going to be commonplace, says the governor of Illinois. And we need to be ahead of the line. Well, this is your government choosing for you. In a few short years, California will absolutely, without question, you won't be able to buy a car that runs on gas or diesel, he said, which is not true either. So currently legislation in Springfield, Illinois, to adopt California's tough emission standards. Americans have been slow, the story says, to give up their gas-powered vehicles. Tesla and Ford are slashing prices to try to get you to buy, and they're losing money doing it. General Motors is talking about bringing back plug-in hybrids. They wanted to go all EV, but that's not happening. And many auto manufacturers are reducing EV production, if producing them at all. So this is not happening the way that they thought it's going to happen. Again, this is what happens when your government decides to decide for you what you should be buying, whether it's a car or anything else. And there's pushback against that. Let me see. EU, here we go. European Union. This is not a surprise. Scrapping its plan to ban the internal combustion engine by 2035. After votes in Brussels late Monday, majority of the European parliaments favored a proposal that would no longer automatically classify electric cars as climate-neutral vehicles. Well, of course, they're not. The proposal, the CO2 emission of electric cars, will depend on the electricity mix used to charge the car, basically. EU plans to release a phase-out of internal combustion engines, so they say. However, at the same time, they're acknowledging that in order to charge these vehicles, you're going to have to create emissions. In China, the automotive industry and many EU states warn of economic and social consequences of banning the internal combustion engine. Currently, electric cars in the EU are given a CO2 emissions rating. The zero emissions claim is a lie, of course, and you're beginning to realize this. Efforts are being made to run combustion engines on climate-neutral fuels. Again, they keep treating CO2 as if it's a pollutant, which, of course, it's not. But the idea that they're going to run electric vehicles on what they call climate-neutral fuels is as bad of an idea as trying to make an all-electric vehicle and calling it a zero-emissions vehicle. When you take a close look at it, you realize that it's not. Now, not done here. I'm going to do one more on that topic in the next hour. I got other things to talk about, too. But I want to get into what truck drivers are going through in California, because once again, in California, it's not working out the way California thought it was going to work out. 8:45, wake up.
Wake up, Wyoming, with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
8:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Canavino is waiting by. So, Frank, over the years, we've been given lots of money-saving ideas for transportation that have not worked out, right?
Yeah, those 2-for-1 deals don't work.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, someone a while ago, let me see, this is back in the, it looks like it was in the 50s.
Yeah.
Came out with this little scooter, and I got to tell you, it was ugly, very boxy looking. And it was supposed to be a 4-cycle engine up to 100 miles per gallon. And they show a guy in a suit with a nice hat on like they wore back then, riding to work on the little scooter.
Okay.
Didn't work out.
Why?
Nobody wants them. You see the occasional scooter out there, but how many do you see?
Not many.
Yeah.
I mean, they come and go. It's weird. And it also depends where you are.
Sure.
Like in the U.S.,
yeah,
they're nowhere to be found.
Right.
In Europe,
a lot more. Their streets are very narrow.
Yeah,
in Europe,
very narrow. Yes.
Okay, then every so often someone comes out with a 3-wheeled car.
A 3-wheel car.
Yes.
What is it called? It's 2 wheels in the front and 1 in the back.
Oh, I forget that. Well, there's a motorcycle like that, but it's not a cycle. It's a tricycle.
It's like a spider.
Spider is what they call it. Yeah. No, it's enclosed. It's a car. Now, the dumb people, manufacturers, put the wheel up front.
The one wheel up front.
Yes. You try to make a turn, you tip over. Right.
So that's why now.
The smarter people put the other wheel in the back. The problem is, Frank, have you ever really seen anyone driving one of those?
No, not really, unless it's for a car show.
That's about it, yeah. So the point is, there's all of these over the years. We can go a lot more than this. All these vehicle ideas they keep coming up with. This is going to save you a lot of money. Frank, when it comes to cars, I don't think people are interested in saving money.
Well, no, I don't think it's possible to save money.
No.
I mean, I guess we can buy an Alfa Romeo.
I'm not saying go crazy and buy something really expensive, but all of these really affordable, even, remember when they came out with this smart car? You've seen a few in town.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
Those tiny ones like go-karts?
Yes, and they were supposed to save everybody a whole lot of money and be a lot better for the environment. How many have you ever seen?
when they came out, I saw a few.
Yeah.
And then
They're out
afterwards,
of business,
not so much. High school basketball, the season came to an end on Saturday in Casper with the championship games in the 3A and 4A tournament. In 4A boys, Cheyenne East beat Laramie 62-59 to claim their first state title since 2021. Central was led by Joe Sawyer with 19, and Laramie got 20 points and 15 rebounds from Neil Summers. Natrona took third in that tournament, beating Star Valley in the consolation round on Saturday, and Cheyenne East took fifth as they defeated Jackson on Saturday. Powell won the 3A boys title with a 49-34 victory over Wheatland. That was Powell's first state championship since 1998. On the girls' side, Sheridan won the 4A championship with a 65-56 win over Campbell County. That was Sheridan's first state title since 2007. Cheyenne East took third with a win over Cody on Saturday, and Kelly Walsh took fifth with a win over Laramie on Saturday. Douglas won their fourth state title in a row in 3A and their sixth in the last 7 years with a 54-33 win over Buffalo. It's March Madness for the University of Wyoming basketball team, still playing the Mountain West Conference tournament in Las Vegas this week. Wyoming Cowgirls will take on Boise State tonight at 8:30 Mountain Time. The Cowgirls are the third seed in the tournament at 16-13 overall. Boise State is the sixth seed, and they beat Utah State the first round yesterday. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State on Wednesday in Vegas in the opening round of the Mountain West tournament. The Pokes are 15-16 overall. They are the number 8 seed in the tourney, and they just pounded Fresno State over the weekend, 86-47. UW outscored the Bulldogs 40-17 in the second half of that game, and Fresno comes into Wednesday's game with a record of 11-20. Men's junior college basketball, Casper College won the Region 9 tournament play-in game on Saturday with a 114-94 win over Eastern Wyoming as Darius Robinson as well as Abdul Bashir had 33 points each. T-Birds will play McCook in the second round on Thursday at 5 p.m. in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The LCCC men beat Western Wyoming on Saturday in their play-in game 90-81 as Jordan Reed had 24 for the Golden Eagles. They'll play Western Nebraska on Thursday at 7 p.m. The women's Region 9 tournament will be in Casper starting on Thursday. The Casper College ladies, rated 16th in the country, will play McCook on Thursday at 7 p.m. The LCCC women out of Cheyenne lost their play-in game to Eastern Wyoming over the weekend 72-66, and they wrap up the season at 11-18. That's it in sports.
Okay, so have you ever tried to buy like a little fuel efficient?
No, not really. I mean, that smart car wasn't about gas thing. It's like, boy, if you're in an accident with that thing.
Actually, okay, the smart
holy
car.
Cow.
Now, I've watched something on the smart car. The car will sacrifice it to save you. So the car will be demolished. You'll walk away. They're actually very safe vehicles. But I would never take them out on the interstate in Wyoming.
I don't know.
Absolutely no way. Especially when it gets windy out there.
Well, yeah, it could end up on its roof.
Yes, it's just too small. It's too light. There's absolutely no way. It's fine if you're just puttering around town going to work and back.
Yeah.
Except when it starts to snow.
You're screwed.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Frank. So, yeah, I always looked at the smart car. If I lived in a major city with a lot of tight parking and traffic, something like that size maybe. But probably not. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Six at a time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It is a Monday, and I said 9:06 just in case all your clocks are not reset, just so you know.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
888-97 Woods the phone number. It is open phone, so 888-97-WOODS. Got a couple more things with the cult of climate change, and I got a few other stories to go through. But because it's open phones, you can interrupt me at any time. Fine, I'll hit the brakes for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Al
You're
Gore.
driving a big car. I come on your radio. I say the end's close. You just say no. I say it's global warming, but you call me a liar. But this planet's on fire.
Let's go to California real quick, and you truck drivers out there. And when I teased this last hour, there were a couple of truck drivers who sent me notes about we should just get truck drivers out of California. I think we're going to wind up doing that if California is not careful. Study finds California's semi-truck electrification comes with enormous costs, and it's going to hit customers. Of course it is. Trying to electrify things like, your car. Trying to go wind and solar and carbon sequestration, things like that. Make your electric bill skyrocket. And everything else goes up too. Of course. Same thing's happening. I know this is the case because it's not just happening here in the United States or Wyoming. It's happening tenfold or more in Europe, so we already see what's happening in advance. Story says in 2022, California adopted regulations that require all new cars and trucks, SUVs, to be sold in the state, that's the new ones, to be zero emissions by 2035. Immediately, 17 states eyed the electric vehicle mandate and started considering their own. That was on top of the Biden administration's own tailpipe standards, which many say function as a federal EV mandate. Well, the vision, the story says, of a forced electric vehicle transition hasn't quite gone as California and the Biden administration have hoped. But in April 2023, California was still riding high on a wave of EV fever that set its ambition. See, back in 2023, they were all convinced we're going to do this. Well, reality sucks sometimes. So the issue that has reduced customer interest in EV are compounded with the heavy-duty semi-truck. A recent study by the American Transportation Research Institute, which, by the way, the acronym for their name looks like Atari. But anyway, if you remember the computer, finds that if California transitioned to electrified trucking fleet, it would strain the state's already stressed electrical grid, take decades to source the minerals needed, and ultimately drive up the cost of everything in the state of California. California's 2022 Advanced Clean Fleet Regulations is what they call it, hope to lay the groundwork for replacing all diesel-powered semi-trucks with electric ones, starting with day-range freight. Day-range trucks are those hauling goods and to and from seaports by rail yard. In 2022, there were over 140,000 day-range trucks operating in California, and approximately 33,500 of those trucks service the state's ports and rail yards annually. Well, the regulations would require that all of them transform to zero emissions, as they call it, which is, again, I'll have to correct that. There is no such thing as a zero emissions vehicle. I know you don't get any emissions out of the vehicle itself, but you have to create emissions to charge it. And you're not going to go all wind and solar to do that. We've already seen that. So they wanted a 100% transition by 2035, as with the California EV mandate. Other states are looking at pushing their own truck regulations. In October, National Grid, which services much of New York, launched a 2-year study into what that would mean. In October 2023, California Trucking Association filed a lawsuit in federal court hoping to block the enforcement of those rules. They conflict with federal law. California sought a waiver from the EPA, so it may enforce the state's own emission standards. While the EPA mulls over the request, California isn't enforcing anything. So as the battle wages, not just in court, but with the regulators, so far California has not enforced any of this, which means they're never going to hit their target goals. But it's typical. It's California. They'll never hit their target goals. Whether that reprieve results in the end of electric semi-truck mandates on what the EPA decides or not, it's going to be a feasibility question. But here's the thing. They can go ahead. Let's say they did it. Let's say they did it, and these vehicles have to be all electric. Well, it isn't going to work. Much like a while back, California tried to go all wind and solar, and they ended up keeping a nuclear plant online and turning back on natural gas plants because it wasn't working. So they can say they're going to do it by a certain deadline, and then they go ahead and try, and it doesn't work. Quote, it's certainly possible to run these heavy trucks on batteries, but the cost is incredible, said Dave Blackmon, an energy analyst who publishes Energy Absurdities on Substack. He told us, in looking at California's semi-truck transition, they followed the methodologies from the 2022 national analysts. The analysts found that electrifying all vehicles on American roads would require about 40% more all-electricity generation, 40% more than we're currently generating at the very least. Some states would need more, including California, about 57% or more. Tens of millions of dollars, and you want to talk about going green. You're going to have to start mining cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel. I could take as much as 35 to 40 years to get out just what they need to do this by conservative estimates. Global production rates would have to be 65% of global reserve on minerals. So they noted there's impacts of this mining, which include massive amounts of, for those people who want to get rid of CO2, this is massive amounts of CO2 to mine all of this, whether they like it or not. The countries from where these minerals are sourced from lack any kind of labor protection, and they certainly don't do it with all electric anything. The story goes on to say the weight of batteries also take up a lot of vehicles hauling. That creates another problem. The infrastructure alone, you guys who drive trucks out there, your trucks are heavy enough as it is. Now let's make them battery operated. Charging infrastructure, massive problem. Another analysis estimates the electrification of America long-haul fleet would require 504 trillion watts hourly. See, this story just goes on and on and on like this. I think you get the general idea. But there's something that I played. Let's see if I can find it again. There we go, earlier this morning. That kind of wraps the whole thing up. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you again.
Just so we're clear on the scale of the issue, each electric vehicle battery for a heavy-duty truck weighs 8,000 pounds. And you need at least 2 of them. So we're talking the weight of, 4 or 5 cars. And my friends and peers in the industry nationwide who have tried to make efforts to put in, say, hey, I'm going to convert a dozen forklifts to electric, or I want to tee up a facility for 30 electric trucks. There's no power. The utilities come back, the cities come back and say, is this some kind of joke? One friend tried to put in Illinois a facility, tee it up for 30 trucks electrification. The city came back and said, this is some kind of joke. You're asking for more draw than the entire city requires. And just to give you an idea, 30, 50 trucks, that's like a 5-6 megawatt application. The factory that makes the trucks is a 2 megawatt factory.
Hey there, boys and girls, or whoever else you identify as. Welcome to Woke Radio, WOKE.
Woke Radio, WOKE.
Here are some hot tracks for your commute across the basement to the office. Don't tell Mom. She's upstairs and she thinks you're looking for a job.
Sure, this show is sustainable. We sequester all gas emissions to one room. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, live on AM 1030 and FM 95.1, weekdays at 6.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. So you can change the subject if you want. All right, some other things. This will make you happy. A court handed Texas a win in a lawsuit over border wall construction. Here, let me capsulize this for you so I don't have to go on for a long time. The gist of it is, when Trump was president, Congress passed funding to build a border wall. So Congress passed it and President Trump signed it. Biden takes office and it's still a law. Now, it hasn't been enforced. Mayorkas is not enforcing it. Biden doesn't want to enforce it. None of the Democrats do. But it's a law in the books. And the money was set aside to build the wall. So you would think that, well, it's what we're supposed to do because it's, law. So we're supposed to build this. So somebody realizing this went ahead and took the Biden administration to court and said, look, the money is there and the law says we have to build the wall. And the court looked at the law and said, you're right. So, Biden, you're not allowed to take that money and go off and spend it on something else. You have to spend that money on the wall, and it's supposed to be built. So go ahead, get to it, take that money and spend it and start building a wall. Now, I don't think the Biden administration will do that. They'll find some way, they will, as you know, to defy the court. But anyway, it was a legal win. We'll find out what happens next. All right. Back to the phones I go. It is 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Off to Mills, Wyoming. Hey, Jude.
Hey, good morning. I was going to tell you about the convention, but first, that photograph you guys are using for that house that's had the cars crash into it.
Yeah.
If you look over in the corner upper right, you'll see a word, PAAD.
Mm-hmm.
That's Paul Pad. That's who I ran against Cheney before she took office for the first time in Wyoming, because I knew she was not right for us to begin with. And Paul had a good platform. I was his campaign manager, but I thought that's a nice little trivia for you.
Okay.
That's what that sign is. That's one of his leftovers.
All right. I was wondering what that said. I couldn't read it all.
Yeah, it's PADD.
All right.
PAAD. Paul Pad.
Okay.
Anyway, we went to the convention Thursday night. Rose and I are alternates. And I just finally pulled up their platform. Because when I was sitting there, I noticed they did some corrections, and they have the caucus member votes on them and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm not a caucus member, but I did do stand-in, so I got to kind of vote on stuff. Anyway, when they were going through their platform, it's under energy. You can pull it up off the Republican Party platform website. It says, believes in energy independence and therefore believes we should reduce regulations and allow the free market to develop, in parentheses, or all capital letters, all forms of energy without interference from regulations or subsidies, and the government should never be the one to choose one form of energy over another. That part right there was skipped over.
Yeah.
And I would stood up and I'd have said that whole thing needs to go.
Yeah.
Because it's picking winners and losers, and it's allowing the subsidies to continue, and it's allowing wind and solar to have favoritism to me, because they made no mention of oil, gas, and natural gas.
Right.
But they passed right over that. So I'm going to make an amendment on that for the next time.
All right.
And I got one change in there, too, about other countries owning land in Wyoming. And I added investors, and they did adopt that. So that was good. And anyway, that was one point in there. And then here's another one. Rob Reed Rasner. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting his name. Okay, now they have in here that marriages, let's see if I can find it real quick. Marriages between, they don't accept marriage like between him and his husband. Okay, well, he's running as a Republican, so that's kind of weird. It kind of just, it's kind of prejudicial, really.
Okay.
I'm not for gay marriage and all of that kind of stuff, but hey, I know what they're doing. When one partner gets sick, the other one is the one that decides the medical treatment. And they both built their marriage together and their assets together. So if they're married, they can give their stuff to their partner rather than have the family come in and vulturize.
Right.
Or if they get divorced, they can have an equitable divorce. So I kind of understand that, too. I think that should come out of there, too. But anyway, it was a good time. I got to joke around with Rob Hendry, my arch enemy, over the gravel pit. He says, well, what do you think of planning now, Judy? And I had to laugh because I ran into Kyle, and him and his son sat next to me, and his grandbaby, Kyle's grandbaby. They are the nicest people.
Oh, yeah.
And I just had
I oftentimes find people that I disagree with to be very likable. We just have a disagreement. I don't have to demonize them. Yeah, I got to run to Boyd, who's waiting over there in Laramie. Hi, Boyd. How are you this morning?
Doing good, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
Was calling about the story up there in Casper with the airplane getting flipped over.
Yes.
Well, I've got a reverse one for you that happened down in Laramie years ago.
Go for it.
And this was right after they'd fenced the airport so you didn't have to buzz the runway to chase the antelope. And we flew up there for breakfast, took the courtesy car into town. And as we were walking across the ramp, there's this guy, probably 60, 65, standing there in front of an open hangar with a cub in it.
Mm-hmm.
We go in, have breakfast, come back about an hour later, and he's still there with the door open, and we stopped to talk to him. Asked him if he was going flying, and he says, well, it depends upon if the wind comes up.
Yeah.
And we go, what? And he goes, well, I've been flying out of here for 20 years. And he says, I am so used to landing in a crosswind. He says, I'm not going to take a chance to go up with the air being this still because I'm not sure I can land it.
I have actually met people who, when the wind is perfectly calm, they have trouble landing. But if you give them a gusty crosswind, that's what they usually do, so they're fine. I've met people like that, yeah. I got to run for news time, Boyd. Thanks for calling in, coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. News time, weather forecast, more open phones. Wake Up Wyoming.
Glenn Woods. He talks to you, not at you. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is Wake Up Wyoming on K2 Radio.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So 888-97-WOODS the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. All right, I'm backing up. I was going to move on to other topics, but I just came across this. And I'm going to delve more into it at a later time, but here's the teaser right now. Headlines, Washington Post. Amid explosive demand, America is running out of power. Imagine that, amid explosive demand, America is running out of power, says the headline from the Washington Post. Vast swaths of the United States are at risk of running short of power, electricity-hungry data centers, and they say clean technology. But remember, these are not clean technology. That is false. And so they're getting more and more into trying to electrify everything, including your automobiles, leaving utilities and regulators grasping for credible plans to expand the nation's creaking power grid. That's interesting, creaking power grid. In Georgia, demands for industrial power is surging to record highs, with the projection of new electricity being used for the next decade now 17 times higher than was previously thought. I bet it's going to be a lot higher than that. Arizona Public Service is the largest utility in the state. It is also struggling to keep up with what's being projected out for transmission capacity. Northern Virginia needs the equivalent of several large nuclear power plants to serve the new data centers planned under construction, where electricity shortages are already routine on hot summer days. And they want everybody driving an electric car, by the way. Soaring demand is touching off a scramble to squeeze more juice out of aging power grids while pushing commercial customers to go to extraordinary lengths to lock down energy sources, such as building their own power plants. Quote, when you look at its numbers, it's staggering, said Josh Shaw, chairman of the Georgia Public Service Commission, which regulates electricity. He says it makes you scratch your head and wonder how we ended up in this situation. Oh, I don't. I don't wonder at all. We talk about that on a regular basis here. And Wyoming is an energy-producing state. We know what's happening. How far off were the projections? We've never seen challenges like this before. Well, and let's talk about exaggerated projections, because oftentimes when a power company is going to put up wind and solar, we're going to get this much energy out of it, and they never get anywhere near that. All right. A major factor, the story says, behind the skyrocketing demands is rapid innovation in technology in general, which is driving the construction of large warehouses of computing infrastructure that require more power than anything we've ever needed. And this is all huge upscaling, including things that we put in the clouds, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, stuff like that. Crypto mining, cryptocurrency, crypto mining takes a lot of energy too. Okay, so the situation is sparking battles across the nation. And what they don't really mention anywhere yet in the story, but it's got to be put in. And the fact that your current government, and governments, I should say, because some states as well, want everybody to start driving electric cars and electric trucks and semi-trucks and so on, which is not possible. We're already falling short even without doing that. The nation's 2,700 data centers snapped more than 4% of the country's total electricity in 2022. Projections show that by 2026, they'll consume about 6%. Now, let's add on to that how much is electric cars and trucks going to take out of that. Data center operators are clamoring to hook up regional electricity grids. At the same time, the Biden administration's industrial policy is luring companies to build factories in the United States at a pace not seen in decades. That includes manufacturing, again, we'll put this in quotes, clean technology. There is no such thing as clean technology. Yeah. When you look at how this technology is being manufactured, it's not clean. Such as solar panel electric cars, things like this, which is being enticed by lucrative federal incentives. Companies announced plans to build or expand more than 155 factories in this country. I'll tell you what's happening now, what's going to happen. All of this comes crashing down at some point. Well, they keep talking about sustainable. Everything's got to be sustainable. This is not sustainable. This is going to come crashing down. It's not sustainable. It's a different kind of sustainability than what they're talking about, but still sustainable. Story says in the past, companies tried to site their data centers in areas with major internet infrastructure, a large pool. Here in Wyoming, they do it because the weather's, for the most part, cooler. So we've gotten some tech centers in Wyoming because of cooler weather. Communities that, that also saves on their electricity consumption, because those data centers get really hot. Communities that had little connection with the computer industry are now finding themselves in the middle of a land rush, with data center developers flooding their markets with requests for grid hookups. Officials in Columbus, Ohio, and Iowa, Fort Wayne, Indiana, being aggressively courted to build data centers out there. The problem is they don't have the power to do it. And they're not going to have the power to do it if they try to go wind and solar. Now, this article goes on and on and on and on, because it's a deep dive into the story, which I tell you what, I'll do. So you can go live your life, and then I'll report back to you on all of this. 9:43, Wake Up.
Covering world-ending catastrophes for years to come. It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Find content, chat live, and listen on demand on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
.48's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Frank Candino over there in the icebox. Remember, Frank, when we used to get the newspapers way back when, and we probably communicated by banging the rocks together or something like that. I think that's how that worked, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they started to come out with those inserts into the Sunday paper.
And that made it big.
Oh, yeah.
I used to be a paper boy.
Oh, yeah.
And Sundays was a pain in the butt.
Oh, my God. I mean, now, did you ride around on a bike?
Oh, yeah. Well, in the summer, and then the winter you walked.
Holy cow.
So people got mad at me because I was throwing the paper on the porch but hitting the screen door instead.
Oh.
It doesn't help your Christmas tips.
No, it really doesn't. But then again, you're asked to lug all of these big, heavy papers. And so what I noticed was, I remember when I was a kid, I start getting the inserts that have the underwear ads.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's getting kind of risque, isn't it? You got the underwear
for the
ads
Sunday paper,
It's a Sunday paper, and you got underwear ads going on here. What made me think of it is I was just taking a moment, just trying to scroll through some social media, looking to see what people are talking about today. And I don't know why, Frank, I got a whole bunch of underwear ads.
Well, because the computer is listening to you.
Listening to my brain.
Yeah. And
that's
if you
scary.
type that in there, it populates.
Oh, Lord. So I got to be careful what I'm even thinking now.
Yes.
Oh, God.
You're just noticing this?
At some point, I thought of underwear ads, and it decided to go ahead and pop up underwear ads in front of me.
See?
Now, here's the big problem with this. So it's bad enough when I was a kid if I'm flipping through the ads and I hit an underwear ad and I pause too long and like my mom is right there.
Yeah. Like,
my dad tells me to stop it, but he wants to see him next. Now, though, I could be scrolling through social media and hit underwear ads where there's some ladies modeling underwear and somebody could walk in the door behind me here at work. What are you looking at?
Well, yeah, and say they want to look at your internet history.
Yeah.
Like, what's he been looking at here? Yeah.
Okay. You and I could never be underwear ad models.
No, not at all.
Would not go. We would definitely not sell.
No.
People would look at those and goes, why the hell would I want to buy? No, sales would drop.
It would be appalling. The high school basketball season did come to an end on Saturday with the championship games at the Ford Center in Casper at the 3A and 4A tournament. In 4A boys, Cheyenne East beat Laramie 62-59 to claim their first state title since 2021. Cheyenne Central was led by Joe Sawyer with 19 points, and Laramie got 20 points and 15 rebounds from Neil Summers. Natrona took third in the tournament, beating Star Valley in the consolation run on Saturday, and Cheyenne East took fifth as they beat Jackson on Saturday. The Powell boys won the 3A title with a 49-34 victory over Wheatland. That's Powell's first state title since 1998. On the girls' side, Sheridan won the 4A championship with a 65-56 win over Campbell County on Saturday, was Sheridan's first state title since 2007. Cheyenne East took third with a win over Cody on Saturday, and Kelly Walsh took fifth with a win over Laramie on Saturday. Douglas won their fourth state title in a row in 3A, and their sixth in the last 7 years. They have just been phenomenal, and they beat Buffalo 54-33 in the championship on Saturday afternoon. It's March Madness for the college teams. University of Wyoming Cowboys and Cowgirls will be in the Mountain West Conference Tournament in Las Vegas this week. The Cowgirls will take on Boise State tonight at 8:30 Mountain Time, and the Cowgirls are the third seed at 16-13 overall. Boise State is at the sixth seed and beat Utah State in the first round last night. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State on Wednesday in Vegas in the opening round of the Mountain West Tournament. The Pokes are 15-16 overall and the eighth seed in the tourney. They pounded Fresno State over the weekend 86-47. UW outscored the Bulldogs 40-17 in the second half of the game. Fresno comes into Wednesday's game with a record of 11-20. Men's junior college basketball, Casper College won their Region 9 tournament play-in game on Saturday, beating Eastern Wyoming 114-94. Darius Robinson as well as Abdul Bashir had 33 points each. T-Birds will play McCook, Nebraska in the second round on Thursday at 5 p.m. in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The LCCC men beat Western Wyoming on Saturday in their play-in game 90-81 as Jordan Reed had 24 for the Golden Eagles. They will play Western Nebraska on Thursday at 7 p.m. The women's Region 9 tournament will be in Casper starting on Thursday. The Casper College ladies, rated 16th in the country, will play McCook on Thursday at 7 p.m. The LCCC women out of Cheyenne lost their play-in game to Eastern Wyoming over the weekend 72-66, and they finished the season 11-18.
So our friend Judy over in Mills, Wyoming, stopped by last week with a 1950s style microphone and gave it to me as a gift.
Okay.
I don't know if it works or not.
We're going to find out.
I can
plug it in here. Or just
in this studio. It's already plugged in.
Oh.
But I haven't been able to turn it on because I'm doing the show here. So as soon as the board is clear and we get into news and all that, I'm going to turn it on, Frank, and see if it works.
Maybe we had that scratchy sound, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I want to sound like I'm on an AM radio, which to the folks out there means every time you drive under an overpass, my voice goes away.
Yeah. Or there's thunder. Remember when you hear static?
Yeah. Okay. See, back when things were quality, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business we got to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that national local update on the weather forecast. I'll let you know tomorrow if the microphone works or not. If it does work, I might try it for just a little bit so you can hear the difference. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.